Hello, this is my submission for the Communication 104 introductory speech. This is my note card, and this is the other side. I just have a few keywords on there. Actually, I hope that focused. The light's funny. Okay, I'll start my speech. Hello, I'm Jonathan Eckstein, and I believe that actions speak louder than words. I'm currently a high school student at Bishop LeBlond, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do to help you form a better understanding of my personality. I'll tell you about my physical activities, mental activities, and activities that blur the line, and I'll call these arts later on. So for physical activities, I do distance running. Now, I didn't used to take any fitness too seriously up until about the time of 8th grade. So during the spring of 8th grade, that was when the pandemic happened in my life. COVID came through, it ran over all of the track plans, but before that happened, I was able to go for one of my first long runs. And ever since then, I've trained year-round for cross country for 3 or 4 years now, and it's been successful. I went to state once, I've got a medal there, so it's been good. I almost went out for football my freshman year, and given that I am generally built thin, it wouldn't have went well. I was even skinnier my freshman year. So I would have been run over. I probably would have got injured really quickly. Yeah, it wouldn't have went well. But it also would have been a really steep learning curve. But that brings me to my second point. Learning doesn't necessarily faze me. It's not something that's incredibly daunting. The type of learning that I don't enjoy is learning that takes a really long time. As in, if a teacher gives me a lot of homework, but it's super easy, I don't tend to get too much from it. It's really monotonous. That's the best word I can describe this with. I tend to do better with a little bit of work that's slightly challenging, maybe even a medium level of challenging. That way I can get something out of it. That way I have to engage with it. I have to use critical thinking skills. That's where I tend to do a lot better. So that means my middle school at St. Paul Lutheran taught using methods very similar to that. It would seem like I had a lot of homework, but in reality, I had a little bit of homework from each class, and I would be given a selection of problems from the teachers, and they would be challenging. But I learned a lot from it. It really set me up well for high school. And high school has tended to be a lot of application, getting ready for college. So that means there's a lot of writing, lots of applied math problems. Basic STEM stuff. But it just takes a lot of time. And I actually don't despise everything that's time consuming, which is a pretty good segue to my next point, which are hobbies. Hobbies usually take up time, right? So my hobbies include blacksmithing, drawing, and running. But I already covered running. So blacksmithing, earlier how I said these arts, these things that I do tend to blur the line. Blacksmithing takes time. You're working with hot metal, dense materials. It's usually steel for me in this case. Some people like working with brass or copper, but I haven't really worked with that much yet. But I have to have the physical ability to hold a tong in one hand, a hammer in the other, or some other tool. I may be holding tongs, a splitting wedge, something like that, to separate the metal. But either way, it requires coordination. But I also have to plan, and that planning requires a mental aspect on top of the physical aspect. And planning usually takes a long time. In between each time I'm heating the metal again, it's called a heat. I'm sitting there, I'm either cranking or adjusting the propane, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? It's a similar idea with drawing. I enjoy drawing. I never really got into painting. Painting never worked too well for me. But drawing, I have to be able to use physical capacities, like my hands, arms, drawing on a medium of paper, and I have to be able to express what's going on in my head. So I tend to enjoy arts as a form of hobby. So in general, I don't do too much more than anyone else. It's more that I'm dedicated to a few things, and I tend to do pretty good at those things I'm dedicated to. I've told you about my physical, mental, and artistic activities as a way to demonstrate who I am. I'm Jonathan Eckstein. I believe actions speak louder than words, and I hope this description of what I do helped you understand me better. Thank you.